What does the passage of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, the Declaration of Independence, and abortion have in common? This is Reverend Jim Harden with Proof of Life. I'm happy to say, for lots of reasons, that Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill passed today, July 1st, in the Senate. And in the bill, the House decided to put a provision in to essentially defund the abortion industry and the abortion industry's ringleader, as it's been called, Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion business on the planet. Planned Parenthood receives about $800 million every single year in federal taxpayer funds alone, okay? That's nearly $1 billion. Just so they can focus on experimental population reduction procedures like abortion and gender transition hormone therapy. And I say experimental because experimental procedures are illegal. And there are several of them, including abortion, surgical abortions, chemical abortion, as well as gender transition hormone therapy that have not gone through the paces when it comes to the third provision of the Nuremberg Code, which essentially was a code that was developed after the Nuremberg trials where Nazi doctors were performing experiments on prisoners of concentration camps. And essentially they're saying you can't engage in experimental treatments or therapies on human beings without the proper protocols being inputted first. One of those, of course, being animal subjects testing. That's not been done for several abortion procedures, including surgical abortion and hormone gender transition therapies. So what happened with this bill is that the Senate passed it today, July 1st. And we're going into, of course, July 4th, which is the celebration of the Declaration of Independence, which is the declaration of the sovereign independence of a nation state, which was a new phenomenon in world history and the history of governance in terms of how nations and peoples define themselves and govern themselves. Absolutely amazing experiment in government. But the presumption with respect to a people declaring themselves independent, specifically as penned by Thomas Jefferson, was that we're endowed by our creator, not our government, with certain unalienable rights, the first of which being the right to life. The other two he refers to as liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and the attendant rights are associated with those two things. But the unalienable right to life must be presumed for a Declaration of Independence. It means that we are owners of ourself as defined by God. God is the one that gave us life, and we are the ones that must protect it. We are not owned by a tyrant or a despot, and we must declare the truth and live the truth that we are our own. We've got this moment in time where the federal government in the United States, after basically 249 years after the Declaration of Independence, is now again reasserted, at least financially, that we are not inclined to pay for robbing of another human being's life. It's antithetical to the nature of the Declaration of Independence. And that's what the abortion industry does. The abortion industry robs preborn boys and girls of their right to life. Life begins the moment of fertilization, when the female gamete and the male gamete meet and create a unique, separate human DNA that controls the maturation of that new, unique human being from that moment on until natural death. It's also interesting to note that 249 years, the actual number 49, is interesting to consider, because when Roe versus Wade was overturned with the Dobbs versus Jackson case in, I believe it was June 24th, 2022, that was 49 years after the passage, should you say, the ruling of Roe versus Wade, which essentially made abortion legal throughout the United States. 49 years of legal abortion. And 49 years in Scripture represents the year of Jubilee, the time at which all debts are called off and everything goes back to the original owner and things are set right. They're reset, if you will, in the year of Jubilee. And so something similar happened with the Dobbs case, resetting jurisprudence to say, look, it's not the job of the judiciary to draft legislation to fabricate a right out of nowhere. A right, by the way, which Justice Alito, who penned the majority opinion with the Dobbs case, it said when the government fabricates a right, like, for example, the right to abortion, it's on a collision course with the Constitution. So the Constitution here with respect to various rights, like, for example, the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, is not applied to the preborn boy or girl if, of course, abortion is legal. They're exempted from the 14th Amendment. It's also the 5th Amendment. The 5th Amendment is not applied to preborn boys and girls, which means you can't deprive a person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It reminds me of a scripture verse in Proverbs chapter 23, verses 9 and 10. It says, "Do not move the ancient boundary or go into the fields of the fatherless." Interesting. It presumes that orphans, widows, and those that are oppressed actually have rights, actually have property, actually have some semblance of duty and respect that's owed them. And it says why. Do not move the ancient boundary or go into the fields of the fatherless. For their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their case against you. Their Redeemer, the one who, picks up their cause in the court of law. And the court of law, when it comes to the ancient boundary, is the Ancient of Days, the one who set the boundaries, the one who says this person will live. That is God. And so we have this situation where America seems to be seeking to reset the ancient boundaries. 49 years after the moving of the ancient boundary of life, with Roe versus Wade, we reset it with Dobbs in 2022. 249 years after the Declaration of Independence, we see that the government is not interested in funding abortion. And I've said this for many, many years. Money follows morality, right? It's look, if you want to know what somebody really believes, what their true core values are, look at where they spend their money. If you want to, because everybody has beliefs. People who think that, well, secularists are objective because they have no beliefs. They're not Christian, they're not whatever. That's not true. Secularists are fundamental in their belief system. They are absolutists. They are intolerant of anybody that has any different kind of view relative to their political policies. Take a look at Letitia James or California Attorney General Rob Bonta, or Elizabeth Warren, or fill in the blank with your political propagandist du jour, AOC, Joe Biden. You name it. They are intolerant. They will use the force of law to beat about the brow anybody who happens to disagree with them on any particular political position they might have. And I say this because that's exactly what has happened to us, Compass Care in particular, with respect to lawsuits and fire bombings and all the rest. But here we have this moment where there's kind of a political conservative revival. But when you have a political conservative revival, it must be attended, if it's going to be sustained, with a spiritual revival, a return to Christ, a return to Jesus, God in the flesh. And so he represents God in every way, manifests the revelation of God in person so that we can be remade in his image. I'm not saying that America should be a Christian nation per se. I'm saying that America should be a nation of Christians because that's the way it was designed. That's the way it started with the Declaration of Independence. That's why you have a Declaration of Independence as such, with the words that are contained in it, such as, we are endowed by our Creator, capital C, with unalienable rights, such as life, which demands respect. And so we must understand that life is the sine qua non of all rights. Sine qua non is a Latin phrase for without which there is none. You cannot have another right. You cannot presume upon any other rights if you don't have life. And it is a right that cannot be given or taken away other than by God. And any or government or person that presumes or deigns to do such a thing ought to essentially disqualify itself or him or herself from what some might consider to be public service. It's a public disservice. It's the depth of public disservice to rob and oppress an entire class of human being, preborn boys and girls in this case, of protection under the law, equal protection under the law. It's a disservice to not only them, it's a disgrace to humanity itself. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so that's exactly what we have. The Declaration of Independence is the basis for a truly blind justice system. This is the 4th of July coming up. Happy 4th of July. And I think I can't imagine any better way to celebrate the 4th of July than for the Senate to approve this bill. This one big, beautiful bill that defunds Planned Parenthood, that defunds the abortion industry. The abortion industry has been kind of whining, if you will, about how they're having to close their offices because of financial pressure, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, quite frankly. It should be raining cash for them in abortion hub states like California and New York. But of the 105 or so abortion clinics that have closed, only 29 of them have been in pro-life states that have restricted the procedure or banned it altogether. The other 60 some odd pregnancies or abortion clinics that have closed have been in states like New York. In fact, one of them of notoriety is the flagship operation for Planned Parenthood in Manhattan. They get the highest Medicaid reimbursement rates of any abortionist in any state. They got $100 million earmarked from taxpayers in New York State from Kathy Hochul in 2024. They got $24 million in grants, federal grants in 2024 alone. Well, they're closing because they have money problems. They're paying their chief executives there in some of these places $350,000 a year. This is like 3 times more than the average nonprofit executive gets paid. Yeah, there's probably, maybe they are having money problems, but it's been proven through the New York Times expose that they have more than money problems. They're committing serial medical malpractice, and it's no good for anybody. It's not good for the medical industry. It's not good for taxpayers. It's not good for the demographics of America that seems to be shrinking because of poor fertility rates. It's certainly not good for babies and women. I mean, since the chemical abortion represents 63% of all abortions in America and sends 1 in 10 women to the emergency room, this is a victory. A victory to be celebrated, a victory for independence, a victory for life, a victory for women, a victory for children, and quite frankly, a stride in the right direction. 1 full year of defunding Planned Parenthood and the abortion syndicates all across this country, I think will do us a world of good. I'm Reverend Jim Harden. You're watching Proof of Life.